thought that as an American citizen that I had certain rights against armed assault.
Right.
But they arrived at my house. They came in with guns and riot shields and helmets and
15 cars, you
yeah,
said.
15 cars, a long driveway.
God.
And you know,
Sorry you had to
I
go through that.
submitted entirely. Well, I submitted entirely, but the point is, all I kept saying and all I was upset about was my patient files, because there were 6,000. Your
My
records,
records.
exactly.
My records now are in the hands
and
of the
they
FBI.
were so
what do you do?
unprofessional that they did not comprehend that the most important thing to a true professional, a lawyer or a doctor, is to protect their patients.
patients,
Okay,
right.
you take me to jail, fine. You do whatever you want to
Your
me.
patients,
But these
there's a-
people, right, I have a sworn
Right.
oath to
There's a
protect
sworn
these
oath,
people,
right.
to do no harm, to prevent harm from coming to them. And they violated their Fourth
Right.
Amendment to have my
Exactly.
privilege. Then they took their Fifth Amendment, because every single one of my questionnaires admits to drug use. So
Right.
now they've just confessed to
Right.
drug use.
Right.
And all because of what? A health and safety code? You know, if there's a bunch of rats over there with plague, shoot the damn rats. Let's not call the feds.
Things have spun so far out of control, and it's, you know, anytime, just on a little bit more of a philosophical bent here, anytime you have so much power consolidated in so few hands, so far removed from where the power, where the leverage and the influence of the power is having an effect on people's lives, that's a prescription for disaster, and that's what we have.
That's what we have here, certainly with the medical cannabis thing in California, where the decisions about these clubs out here, which are supported by local communities like San Francisco and Oakland and so forth, the decisions are being made by Mr. Ashcroft from Washington. I don't think has even visited California.
Well, he
in my
certainly
memory.
hasn't seen the cancer patients that I see.
Absolutely
He certainly
not.
hasn't seen the people whose lives have been, addicted on morphine. They take 80 milligrams to 120 milligrams of morphine. They're on Duramorph patches. They see me the next year. They come back and they've had a safe, secure supply of marijuana for a year, and they go, oh, "You wouldn't believe it, Dr. Fry. I don't use my morphine anymore." And that's the underlying problem. The pharmaceuticals are terrified.
They're terrified.
If marijuana
Here's
becomes
the
an
most
acceptable
potent medicine
alternative,
in the world. I
right,
can
as
grow
an
in my
alternative.
backyard. This thing, I was amazed at the Normal conference, the story about the person, the young 7-year-old that was had, I can't remember the condition, but was
All right,
very...
the child
Yeah,
had a
Santa
condition
Cruz had
from birth.
Right, had a
and-
condition from birth that tried to kill his mother. The only drug, the only substance that got that child down to a place where he could live,
Function.
reason, and function was marijuana.
Right.
They tried
They
everything.
tried 46 other drugs.
Right. Nothing worked. Marijuana. Nothing else worked for my back. I mean, I tried. I smoked in college, when it was fun. You'd sit down and smoke with your friends. I did that and listen to Bob Dylan, sure. And I stopped because it stopped doing anything for me. I stopped having effect. I guess I got saturated. But so for 16 years of working, I didn't smoke at all. Nothing. Zero. And I just on a lark smoked again. And this was after 5 years of back pain. And I'm like, oh, my back didn't bother me tonight. And then I started smoking, and thus no more back pain.
Well, the
I tried
medical
acupuncture, acupressure, muscle relaxants, painkillers, massage. I tried everything.
Yeah.
Nothing. Anything was temporary if it worked at all.
The evidence is overwhelming, and even in the PDR, which just blows me away. Okay, the doctors have this Bible called the Physician's Desk Reference. There's not a doctor on the planet who doesn't get one yearly. Okay, they made one for herbal medicine in 2000. Right there under cannabis, they have the whole thing.
Researched indications.
Right, and it says that cannabis reduces pain, cannabis reduces muscle spasms, cannabis increases appetite, cannabis shrinks brain tumors, cannabis dilates bronchioles, so it helps people with asthma. It's unbelievable.
It's unbelievable what it does. I read something.
And that's 2 years ago.
Right. I read something the other day that claims that it actually protects the brain from nerve gas.
Oh, absolutely.
You've heard
If
that too?
sarin gas
There you
had
go.
been the drug that they
There
had
you go.
put, instead of running into the towers, everyone would be smoking cannabis. Because unless you've got cannabis on board, you're dropping dead. And they now are
The
showing...
Israeli army gives them little pills
preliminary,
that have,
with the cannabinoids in it.
exactly, the
Preliminary
cannabinoids,
studies that are
exactly.
coming out of Europe now
Anthrax,
show
too.
that marijuana, anthrax, but it's more protective, which is fascinating, to the biggest killer in children, which is intracranial trauma secondary to motor vehicle.
positive. Oh, really?
And
Wow.
what evidently happens is, how they induce a coma on a kid, and 10 days later they wake them up and they pray that the brain swelling has gone down. Cannabis infused into the brain on pharmaceutical levels appears to block brain damage. Now, once it becomes evident that your child is either going to be a gork or a normal person, if the government doesn't change its mind, every parent in the world is going to go
I think
for
there should,
it. But
you know, the
that's probably
lawsuit
5 years
angle, you know,
away.
that we
Right.
Where's
And
the lawsuit angle? in this
Well,
whole
I
thing?
know you keep bringing up and I want to say
Sorry,
that, you
not
know.
put the pressure on.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
Sue the federal government.
Well, what'd you say?
They can't sue the
Well,
federal
no, we do.
government,
I
can you?
mean,
It's
we
been
are
done.
suing the
Danny
federal
Shane's
government
done.
right now. I mean, the
we are,
Conan
yeah.
case is
Right.
suing the federal government, and there are circumstances, and I think that we need to be careful when we sue the government because of the obvious bias in the courts. Although I did want to say there have been some good decisions, and there certainly are. We need to also recognize that when we're shaping our litigation decisions, look into that. You know, just last year, the Supreme Court said that a medical center in South Carolina couldn't just test all women or pregnant moms, and then if they tested positive, drag them off to jail to await the birth of or take their children away. So there are some good cases, and I think we need to recognize that. But I also think we need to recognize the potential and look to those cases of the court system and set things up so that we can be successful, as well as recognize the limits and look to some of these other vehicles. And I think when you were talking about the research, and I think another really important piece besides looking to the courts is really looking to how can we promote good, serious science that kind of challenges the current medical system, which really limits and really channels research into other directions, because we really need to help channel
Right, well, I
more of
think
that
one of
money
the
into real
biggest-
serious
one of
research.
the biggest issues
There's
is
more of
money.
that, but there's still a limited amount of that. So
because
once
when money
again,
came to UC
self-fulfilling.
Davis when I was at UC Davis in '85, and when money came to UC Davis to study cigarettes, it came with the caveat: be sure you only report positive findings.
Right.
You know, and
That's
that's
the
the
way
way
the science is
research
done.
that's
That's the
funded
way
through
it's
the
done.
feds is. Like
Global
my
warming,
research.
we've got scientists that say there's no
It's
global
not happening,
warming. It
right.
doesn't matter that the ice shelf
You're
is melting.
imagining
Our
it,
scientists
right.
say
Right.
there's no global warming.
Right.
And the Republicans say let's wait 50 years and then
Right, and then we'll worry.
Then we'll worry. Let's wait.
Right.
When the water's this deep, we'll start thinking about
So
it.
what
But
I've
there is
done is
litigation,
I've been doing anecdotal research because it's the only kind I could afford, and I give everyone a 7-page questionnaire, and I ask my patients to be as honest as possible and to sign a release that I may use their information but not their name. And I've accumulated before the raid over 6,000 questionnaires, basically defining the face of medical marijuana. And what we find is, unbelievably, 93% of these people have graduated from high school or
Right.
higher. 9% of them hold a PhD or higher.
Right,
I mean, it's
right.
unbelievable.
Right.
There's not
Right,
9% of the
right.
population that has a
Right, yeah.
PhD.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And in addition to that, there tends to be in my population more men than women. And basically, we were talking about spiritual. I asked 7 spiritual questions, and I got between 75 and 80% response in a positive way that marijuana increased their ability to be patient, increased their family enjoyment, increased the quality and ability to appreciate life in general, did not alter their reasoning, which blew me away because I
Right.
thought for sure they'd go, well, at least I'm stupid. I mean, you know, but no, they said they still reason. 50-50
Right, sure.
said they could reason. And problem solving, 70-some% said that marijuana assisted them in
Assisted
problem
them in
solving. And I
complex.
guess because it was a questionnaire,
Right.
yes/no questionnaire, I think what I was seeing was they're thinking spiritual problems, family problems,
Right.
personal problems.
Right.
Because I'm thinking calculus, algebra, forget it.
Right.
But problem solving to the average
Right,
person may
right.
not be what
Right,
I'm
right,
thinking.
exactly.
But what that's showing, and that's just
Right.
the preliminary results, and like you said, I don't know how, you know, they say there's no double-blind control studies. Well, how can you double-blind control for a
Yeah.
smoked product that smells so distinctive?
Right, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, the very nature of the fact that the
Yeah,
medicine smells and tastes and alters.
I think anecdotal
Although-
evidence is. I'm sorry. Anecdotal evidence is very important because what the government tries to do, there's a campaign to paint people that smoke marijuana as like loser couch potato. You know, hey, there's a rerun of Gilligan's Island I haven't seen. I'm going to stay and do that. But you don't hear about the Carl Sagans of the world.
Right.
You know, the people that have been very
Enlightened.
vocal and said that one of his, the way he got a lot of his inspirations, he said he would smoke, he would have a smoke, and then he'd go in the shower, and the inspiration that would be his time of greatest inspiration.
But he didn't say it while he was still alive. That came out after his death. He was afraid to say
He
it
was
because
afraid
he
Because of
was
the very
afraid
reason.
He was afraid to
He
say
had
it.
government contracts, actually. He
Right.
wouldn't even been eligible to.
Well,
would-
exactly,
yeah.
and there
Right.
goes the research. I'm the only doctor who
And they've
is
got your
either
research.
stupid enough or brave enough or naive enough, whatever you want to call it, to stand up totally and say, wait a minute, we got to reevaluate
do
this
that.
whole
I
thing.
applaud you
But
for
I'm just
doing that.
saying, like Dr. Abrams and a lot of the doctors who, as you were mentioning, are into already existing positions, they can do research, but their hands are tied. And the things that they can say are very different than the things that you could do if you're acting entirely independently.
Well, actually, and there really is no freedom of research at all. When you come to drugs, we have a police state with regards to that.
Exactly.
You can only do research that is approved basically by the DEA. And
Right,
you can
or like in
only
my
use
questionnaire.
marijuana. There is only one supply of marijuana available in the entire country. It's
Right, or
grown
you're breaking the
by
law.
the U.S.
Federal
government, and
government.
it happens to be terrible marijuana.
It's
of
the
no
lowest grade.
No potency.
And it shouldn't be used, frankly.
and
you
that's-
can
And that's
not
what they're doing
medical
in their
grade.
studies in terms of physiological damage. They're having these people smoking 5 of these joints of cheap government bad pot.
Right.
I mean, you don't smoke that much. You smoke a little tiny. I mean, for me, you know, it's a little bud, you know, and that's it for the day.
Right,
you
but
know?
that also gets to the point because it's a limit. It's the point that I was trying to make. Is one of the things we need to be pushing for is to open that up. Because it's true that the federal government provides the only legal source of marijuana, but the other piece of it is that it's the laws, but it's also the drug companies and the influence on those laws that are leading research in drugs in this country.
Which is
and there's
exactly
no
what
way
I'm trying to
get-
say. Who has the most to
Right.
lose?
Well,
So
it's,
I think
yeah.
because I think anecdotal studies are fine, is particularly as far as the other piece of it, which is maybe more important, which is kind of the cognitive liberties piece of
Right.
it, that we all have a right to put into our bodies
Sure.
what we want. But if we're talking specifically about medical marijuana and this chicken and egg problem of justifying the medical uses
Well,
through
here's the problem.
peer-reviewed research. our
Here's the
hands are
problem.
tied in that.
100 years ago, there was nothing but peer review, and there was nothing but anecdote, and there was nothing but the fact that I've seen 6,000 patients, I've talked to 6,000 people, and the bottom line that's so frustrating in this situation is when did people become unreliable evidence? When is it true that now people are not reliable? I have patients come and they report to me grams and milligrams and how much they're using and how they're using it, and they also report to me the other drugs they're using and what they're getting from their other doctors and what amounts and all this stuff, and that's what is in reality what a doctor does with science is you see what